here we are. Henry and I are at Permacommons Garden. This is 1304 Pennsylvania Street, and this is the spot that we are responsible for taking care of. So in the wintertime, we shovel the sidewalks to make sure that it stays clear for people that are walking. We love it when people pick up their dog poop, so that's great. Otherwise, what we do is just try to maintain the wildness, sort of act as the stewards of this garden while allowing the perennial species to really take over and thrive. So there's quite a bit of nature here on this quarter-acre lot that we will show you, and we'll walk you through and talk a little bit about all the different species that we have here, some of the fruit trees, shrubs, vines, ground cover, and perennial species that we have here at Permacommons. So Henry, you want to say hi?
Hi.
Henry, my son, is the camera operator here today, so I'm grateful for his help. So out here in the front, between the sidewalk and the street, this is considered an easement. You can plant certain things on this property with the understanding that if the city has to come in and work on utilities, that is something that could be lost. So you may not want to plant anything that's super special or sacred here with that possibility. But here at Permacommons, we've planted many different edible species. So over here on the north corner, between the chestnut tree and the sidewalk, we have some blackberry vines that are coming up here. This is a thornless satin variety, so no thorns on that. And then underneath, we have a ground cover that is a wild primrose, and we also have this columbine that likes to self-seed regularly, and you can tell that it's getting ready to bloom, and it's a beautiful blue flower whenever it blooms. We also have this purple dead nettle that comes up as an understory, which is great. If you have chickens or if you have quail, they love to eat that. And then continuing further this way, towards the street, we have a jujube tree, which is valued and prized in Asian cultures. A beautiful date-like fruit is produced by jujube, and it can be a good understory tree, although I would probably recommend it more for full sun if you were wanting to plant that. And underneath the jujube tree and sort of in this middle area, we have red raspberry. And you can see here that there is a little bit of pruning that can happen at this time of the year. You can really tell what is going to be productive and growing in the season and what's really done. This past year, this cane would have produced fruit, so it no longer serves a purpose. So you can prune this down to the ground and remove it. These red raspberries do have thorns on them, so you want to make sure and use rose gloves or leather gloves whenever you're handling anything like that. Out here, I generally let any wild ground cover take over that really finds this to be a desirable growing area. So we have some chickweed here. That's a great medicinal plant. We'll have lemon balm coming up later. We've got a little bit of lily of the valley that's been planted and is starting to spread. So you know, definitely being very careful with your plant identification, because that is poisonous, but it's a great shade tolerant ground cover, so it is something that we will mix in every once in a while. Further on down this way, you know, there's columbine again, more chickweed again, more purple dead nettle. Over here in the sunnier area, this is Dame's rocket, a great native that'll come up here just from seed, and I will need to clean up a little bit of that debris to, you know, have it really show off whenever it is time to bloom. And in here we also have some native black raspberries that are amazing, that will fill in this area as well. Over here, we're going to start going in through the garden gate area, and I'll start showing you some more of the perennial species that we have inside the fence. All right, so here on the south side, we have some cornelian cherries. These are not very sweet cherries, but they are prized in certain cultures for being a very unique and special fruit. Whenever we harvested these this last year, I put them in vodka for a special Christmas treat. Over here on this south side, we have a sweet cherry. The variety here is Montmoreni, and beautiful, beautiful cherry tree, very low maintenance, and good production from there. We have an understory of nettles, some catmint, and some strawberries, columbine, clover, and then just some walking onions that will just kind of take up house in various areas of the garden, and provide like a good insectary benefit to the trees around them as well. So we like to encourage that. Over here on this side, we've got some red raspberries that have come underneath the sidewalk and are now wanting to take their place here in this this fence area. So I'm going to be training them up into the fence area and allowing them to continue. Underneath this mulch pile here, we have some fig trees that have been here since the garden was first planted. This is mission figs here, so it's an older cultivar of figs that are hardy in our cold climate. So right now they are underneath mulch to protect them from what has been cold. But today is April 18th, so we're getting to be close to a frost-free time, so it's going to be safe to take the mulch off of them and allow them to stand up vertical and go ahead and produce their leaves. Now here, this is a clove currant or a spice currant, and the blooms smell amazing. It smells a little bit like cinnamon or vanilla to me, so spice. So this clove currant, very nice low maintenance shrub that you can incorporate into your landscape or into your farm if you're looking for more food production. Over here is another cornelian cherry. The blooms are finished. This is one of the first things to bloom in spring, even before a forsythia, and it's a beautiful yellow blossom that comes on. Gooseberry is another wonderful, beautiful cascading shrub that you can incorporate into your landscape. It does have thorns, so picking the fruit can be a little bit challenging, but there are some specialty picking equipment that you can use for that. Over here, next to the rain barrel, we have a hazelnut shrub, which is also a beautiful, very low maintenance dwarf tree or shrub that you can incorporate a very unique type of leaf here. We have not gotten a crop off of the hazelnut yet. It needs to be planted with another variety for pollination to take place. We also have a mulberry here. This is just a native mulberry that the birds brought in, but it's something that we have decided to keep as it will help to shade the rainwater catchment here. This is the only rainwater catchment that we have on the north side of the property, and you may be able to see how there's sort of an aqueduct coming over from the neighbor's property here into this tank. And during most seasons, we don't have to use city water. We're able to rely primarily on the rainwater catchment that we have here, which is 1,500 gallons on site. So something that you may notice in Permacommons Community Garden is that we don't have boxes or square or rectangular little areas for people to plant and harvest from. It's all perennial, which means that it all comes back every year, and we all work together on the entire garden for any pruning, weeding, harvesting, or pest or disease management that has to happen. But for the most part, we welcome nature in the garden. If you have wild primrose in your garden, and if you have tomatoes, the tomato hornworm will prefer to go to the wild primrose before they go to your tomatoes. So sometimes it's helpful to have certain native weeds in your garden in order to help protect maybe one of your more preferred food crops. So that's something that you would want to look out for and protect in your garden. Now here in this space, we have several different plants happening. I was given some peony plants, so there's several planted around the edge of this bed. They're wonderful, usually bloom around Mother's Day, and it is a wonderful cut flower plant and sort of an heirloom plant that a lot of people really love in this part of the country and everywhere really, prized in Asian countries as well. We also have blueberry shrubs that are planted throughout, and I am also just starting to plant some sand plums that will take over whenever the blueberries start to come closer to the end of their useful life. We have some culinary herbs that are growing here as an understory. So we have some oregano and some thyme coming up, along with some chives that are in this area that look great whenever they bloom purple. And then we have a couple of dwarf apple trees. These is the Liberty variety of dwarf apple, and they just look beautiful and they smell beautiful right now as they are starting to blossom. We've got great pollinator support for all the ground cover that we have here. You can see some more of the lower growing purple dead nettle here. There's little bees all over the ground cover. You can kind of hear them buzzing around, and then being here, they help to support the primary fruit tree species that's planted. Now in this area, we're going to come across another sweet cherry. All of our trees tend to have these necklaces to help us identify them. This is another Montmoreni tree, and we try to prune it with an open shape towards the middle, so you can kind of see how the middle is left open and there's no branches, coming towards the center, so that it gets good air circulation and it helps keep the tree healthy. Over here we have a couple of more cornelian cherry trees, also very early bloomers. And across the way, next to that rainwater catchment, we have another type of dwarf tree. This is a Gala dwarf apple tree, and there in front of the Gala, you can see we have these sort of raised beds that undulate. We have pathway bed, so that we can access them in the middle, not have to step on the soil and compact it. But we've also planted some new varieties of figs in this area. This is Hardy Chicago. This is something that we offer through our nursery at Low Maintenance Landscape, and you can grow figs in our area. These are cold hardy, but I do mulch them heavily. So now that we're getting to the frost-free time, the mulch will come off and then they'll be able to stand more vertical.